Hey, good morning. Welcome back to Morning Joy, where truth matters. My name is Keith Downey. I'm your host of the show. And today we have a very special guest. We've got Katie Ruvi. She's not only the... Hey, welcome, Katie. I was just going to credential you. I was going to beef you up and credential you, but, let's just jump right into it. I'll do a little bit here. You co-host Is This for Kids, an amazing podcast. But you also do other things, like you're the co-host of another podcast called Frontiers of Faith from the Pontifical Mission Society. But as I was talking about the GRN raffle, how being able to pay it forward to maybe a family that doesn't have a car, it reminded me of your nonprofit, the Good Egg Fund.
Yeah, the Good Egg Fund is the best part of the internet. It's a completely online sourced way of giving people an opportunity to do good in the world. We kind of believe that not having means should never be the reason why you don't help somebody out. So we at the Good Egg Fund give grants of $500 or less for people to do good for someone else. So I'm not sure that entering the raffle would really qualify in this case, but I love the idea of a raffle where you can pay it forward and give it to somebody else, give it to a family in need. I know so many families in my parish who would love that. Yeah,
definitely. Well, it's awesome. I'm so glad you're here. Primarily the conversation gearing it towards being a parent in 2024. It's crazy, and we have to deal with the stuff that's on screens, whether it's on TV and our phone. But you do a great job, as well as Jonathan Blevins hosting Is This for Kids? Would you say Morning Joy is for kids? Is this for kids?
I mean, so far it seems pretty good for kids.
Right.
There was a commercial we were talking about cervical mucus, which was maybe a questionable thing, but we'll see once they're over like 10.
Yeah, there you go. That's very good. So you what I really like about your show is that I never really thought about, now I'm like a parent. I have all these movies that I love to watch when I was, maybe a teenager, growing up as a young adult. And I would always think like, oh, I can't wait to show to my kid Jurassic Park, for instance. It's such a good movie. And now that I'm a father, I'm like, I don't know. Should I? I haven't watched it in a while. But essentially, Is that what do you do with This Is for Kids?
Yeah, basically it's a little bit of that and a little bit of the new stuff that's coming out right now. So kind of as millennials are becoming parents, we're looking back on the things that we had as children and we're like, hey, is this appropriate? Jurassic Park is a perfect example because I remember my parents took me to see that in the theater and that came out, 94? So I would have been 9. Like I was a very, very young kid. And now I look back on it, I'm like, oh, that was probably a lot. In fact, we watched Jurassic Park with my kids, and there's a very specific scene in which a man is sitting on a toilet and gets eaten by the T-Rex and says a naughty word. And my kids were like, oh, Mom, can I say that naughty word? And I was like, yes, if you're in that exact circumstance, then.
No, I like that too. Sorry, go ahead.
No, we like to look at some of the old stuff, and then we also look at some of the new stuff because honestly, the Overton window has shifted hugely in the last few years. The things that they will bring up in children's or TV shows or movies that seem to be geared toward children, especially that 8 and 9-year-old kind of demographic where they want to be grown so badly, so they want to watch these big kid shows, but they're slipping in this stuff that I don't know. It's really not appropriate. So we do our best to try to give you a good, unbiased review of what's happening in the show in a good like age range that you could apply. But ultimately, our goal is for people to make their own decisions and just be informed about what's out there.
Interesting. Yeah, you mentioned something, the Overton window. What I had no idea what that is. What is that?
Oh, the Overton window is kind of like a term that people use for what society will consider acceptable. So, in the 1970s, you would show a married couple in 2 separate beds, right? And they always had to have 1 foot on the ground. You didn't want just no scandal there. But nowadays, we reviewed a Disney Plus show over on Is This for Kids, where they were talking about some incredibly sexualized things in a show that's aimed at 9-year-olds. So like the things that people will allow to get through the censors, or I don't even know if we have censors anymore. It's just much different than it used to be.
Yeah, you had a time where we had bishops give a thumbs up or thumbs down on films, and today it's just not even taken into account. So it's definitely changed the scenery over the last, say, like 50 years even. So what I like about what you all do is that you don't expect parents, or you don't promote to like completely shelter your children from everything. You're kind of like treating it like we're filters, right? We're there for our
Mhm.
children if they have any questions, if by some chance they happen to see something. But what would you say are some suggestions to help filter some of these awful things on the TV, internet, so on and so forth?
Yeah, I think listening to Is This for Kids is great if you want to check out what we have out there before you pick a media. But also, the thing that I always encourage people to do is to watch it with your kids, because you're not going to be able to prevent them from seeing every awful thing in the world. But your job as a parent is to guide them through it and to help them understand how to process that. And especially through the lens of our Catholic faith. Like, they're not going to spend their entire life having never encountered somebody who is in a constant state of perpetual sin, like, or what is it, unrepentant sin, where they just live that way, and they don't see any problem with it. We're still called to love those people. And how do we do that, and how do we coach our children to do that? We don't want to be viewed as people who raise unloving, uncaring people, but we also want to have children who um, speak truth into the
Mm.
world. So when you're watching these things, my biggest thing that I would tell you is to watch it with your kids and also have a conversation. And we have conversation guides available on our Patreon for Is This for Kids, to help you, like, hey, how do you even start a conversation with your kid if they saw the color purple at a sleepover? How are they
Mm.
supposed to, like, where do you even start? And,
Yeah.
and we've got some of those guides for you.
No, that's so helpful. 'Cause just like thinking, even like watching some, real basic cartoons with my toddler, there's some things I'm like, hold on a second, this way. I'm glad I'm sitting down here. Because, I don't watch, we don't watch Coco Melon, but just an example that popped in my head. They've kind of come into controversy with having like a toddler that has two dads.
Hmm.
Like, people probably don't watch Coco Melon with their kid. They probably just turn it on and leave it on the kid and do something else. It's very important to obviously not watch Coco Melon, get that out of the here, but also just to be with your kids if you're watching something. I
Yeah,
think you have something.
absolutely.
Yeah. Well, thank you for helping us get through that. I do have a couple questions regarding some of your other items that you or projects that you do. I mentioned before, you work with Frontiers of Faith from the Pontifical Mission Society, where you share stories of people who have dedicated their lives to mission work.
Hmm.
Um, what, you know, is there a story you can share from your work with that maybe has stayed with you and maybe exemplifies that organization's mission?
Yeah, right before I started doing the podcast, I actually went with the Pontifical Mission Society to see some of the mission churches in India,
Hmm.
which was extremely meaningful to me. I'm a person who really loves food, so I was like, yes, we're going to get a ton of Indian food, and it's going to be fantastic. But we got to go through all of these different mission territories, and honestly, in the United States, we have never seen poverty. We have no idea what it truly looks like out in the world to live in a place with no toilet, with a limited understanding of, like, what basic hygiene would look like, where you should draw your water if this is where everybody's going potty, kind of a situation. I've never been in a place where the biggest concern that's like articulated by the people is child marriage, and them trying to explain to me how do we get out of this cycle of child marriage? And to me, as a Westerner, I'm thinking, you just don't marry your child off. What do you mean? But then they're telling us, well, but then if I don't, she's going to starve to death because nobody will marry her once she's 18. And you learn this deep empathy for other ways of being, other ways of loving Christ, of other ways of worshiping our Lord within his church. And that incredible empathy is something that I will never ever forget. The way that they treated me in the mission churches, the way that they were so kind to me, the way that they looked at my customs and the way that I did things as a Western Catholic, and which is funny because anyway, yeah, as as a Western Catholic, they were like, you keep your shoes on, but we take our shoes off in church, that kind of a thing. They were
Huh.
just so respectful and so kind. So these are the stories that I want to get out there, because once you're in the mission churches, you can't miss that these are the people that Christ died for. It's impossible. Like, we get so caught up in church politics here in the United States,
Mm.
but when you're in the missions, it's so much more base level than that. It's just, I need a priest to live near me so I can receive the sacraments, like
Hmm.
basic stuff that we take for granted.
Wow. Yeah. I was just thinking when you were talking, like, I'm so enthralled with my own life as an American that I don't really think about what it's like to be Catholic somewhere around the world that is not a first world country.
Yeah.
What is the Catholic Church like in India, out of curiosity? You mentioned they take their shoes off for Mass?
Yeah. One of the coolest pictures that we took while we were there is outside of this giant church in Kerala, which is a very Christian area in India. India is only like 2% Christian anyway, but Kerala is pretty heavy Christian there. And outside is everybody's shoes are just piled up on the stairs. And then they go in barefoot, sort of like, you know, how Moses is barefoot in front of Christ. They say, this is a holy place, so take off your shoes. That's something that they take very seriously. So they take their shoes off outside. But we were asking, like, should we take ours off? And they're like, no, we understand that in your culture, that would be disrespectful. So we don't want to put that on you. So it was really fantastic. And yeah, it was so great. One of the weird things, though, we turned around during the sign of the peace and accidentally found that I was on the man side of the church. Didn't know there was a man side of the church. No. My bad. I was like, oh, hi. Everyone behind me is a man. Hello.
Wait, you sat in the front and so you didn't see like that you were like on the
we brought our own priest. We brought Monsignor Kieran Harrington, who's the lead of the Pontifical Mission Societies in the USA. And so he was presiding and we got there early and sat in the front row. Didn't look behind us.
That's your mistake. You went too early. That's well, not this. I'm just joking.
As a mom of 5, like in general, I'm showing up at the last minute, barely getting in. So this is brand new information for me.
And then the first, you're not with your kids. You're like, I'm going to be at a Mass early. That's perfect. Oh, well, that's great. Oh, my goodness. Well, Katie, thank you so much for hopping on. You're perpetually invited to the show, by the way. Feel free to always come on.
Keep the Zoom link.
Keep the Zoom link. Please come back again. We have so many more questions for you. You can also stay tuned if you want, Katie, to join us on the After Show Clubhouse, which is streamed exclusively only on YouTube. So if you're on the radio listening and you're about to hop in to the office, or maybe you're working from home, just pull up YouTube, our GRN online part of the YouTube channel, I guess you call it, and we'll be streaming, having some fun topics to talk about. But hey, maybe you're done for the day. Well, we're just glad that you're here with us. We look forward to talking with you tomorrow. Tomorrow's Friday. I'm so happy. Well, we want to send you off to wherever you're going. Otherwise, we'll see you at the After Show Clubhouse. God bless, and make it a joyful day. We'll see you soon.
This has been Morning Joy, where truth matters, hosted by Keith Downey. Take some joy with you today. Visit grnonline.com/joy to listen again, share a segment, or answer the question of the day. That's grnonline.com/joy.